It is that time of night again. Hello, by the way, it's Kait Borsay. It's the evening edition on Times Radio, and it's that time of night when we run through some of the big stories of the day with two special guests. We've got a pair of author and broadcasters with us this evening, and the columnist Peter Hitchens, also an author. Good evening, Peter. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Kate.
And the author and broadcaster Nels Abbey. Nels, good evening.
Good evening.
Great to have you both with us. I'm looking forward to digging into some of the day's big stories with you. We'll talk about Zach Palansky in a little while and discuss some Italian tourists who were made to apologise by the Italian embassy in Thailand for, well, awful behaviour. And so they should have apologised. But we'll take that in next as well. Let's start with Andy Burnham, though. It's been a week since Burnham became Prime Minister. And if last week was his victory lap, his second week this week we'll see him attempt to tackle some of the difficult and expensive issues facing the country. Labour is now leading the polls with one more in common, putting it at 28%, 4 points ahead of Reform UK, the first time Reform have been unseated in over a year. And the Prime Minister is expected to make several announcements this week, two big chunky ones, as he tries to carry the momentum and set out his plans for defence, devolution, his vision for getting young people back into work, and social care.
And credit to the leaders of the two main parties, Kemi Badenoch and Ed Davey, both of whom have reached out over the weekend to say they're prepared to engage in talks. I think, it's one thing to say that and, another to actually then mean it and try and find common ground. But let's try. On this issue, no party is in a position where they've got the high ground. We've all failed on this issue over decades, and the pressure now on the National Health Service as a result of that failure is huge.
Terry Stiasny, the political journalist, joined us earlier.
I think he's trying to set out a direction of travel here. I think he's trying to say, look, these are the big issues that we realise as a government that he wants to deal with. And I think it will be a while until we get a lot more of the precise detail of how this is going to work. Partly, obviously, because Parliament isn't sitting at the moment. And as you say, there won't be that scrutiny. And particularly on issues like social care, we've had these sort of offers of caveated help and support from the opposition parties. But I think they are going to look at it much more critically and see whether this is something that can be agreed upon cross-party, which has been very difficult to do in the past.
Let's come to you first of all, Peter, if we can. Is Andy Burnham, his first full week, second week overall, is he right to wade into these very heavy, chunky, not to be solved easily issues that face us at the moment, things like youth unemployment, social care?
Well, I suppose people might remember him behaving like this, but I think the test of it all will be whether he can actually do anything about them, and I'm not at all sure that he can. And this is what he and everybody else is going to discover. No British Prime Minister, no British government has very much room for movement in the current economic situation, where there isn't any money and there isn't any way of raising it without causing a great deal of pain. So I say it's a good set of performances. The lights are bright, the music is jaunty, the clothes all look new. In fact, they look extremely new, and quite expensive. But the actual effects of it over the next 6 to 9 months is something else entirely. And I don't really see how any government can get very far, given the economic state of the country and the huge difficulty of raising any more in tax or borrowing any more money without the debt becoming intolerable. And they're all stuck with that. So it's all capering about on the surface to me.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Burnham clearly puts a lot into the way that he looks. I think he's very
Who can blame him? It's important in the modern world. You do have to look, ever since, I suppose, the age of John F. Kennedy, politicians have to look good. The old days when they could look like tortoises and old frogs are long gone. So there's no surprise in that. But let's hope that he hasn't been accepting money from millionaires to buy his glasses.
Let's hope it's not all style and no substance. He is of course, trying to prove that, Nels, with what he's going to announce. We understand the crackdown on youth sickness benefits, youth unemployment tomorrow.
No crackdown.
Well, there we go.
I mean, whenever you hear that word, you've got to reach for your scepticism monitor. I mean, really, whenever anybody talks about a crackdown, it means they're not going to do anything.
OK, well, that is how one newspaper puts it. That's not what Andy Burnham said, but there we go. Semantics, maybe. I mean, what he's talked about, Nels, is stripping young people of benefits unless they do training or voluntary work alongside them. There are too many young people claiming PIP, sickness benefit, without any requirement to work or really do anything else or to look for work at all, which seems a massive misstep to start with.
Well,
So,
how did it happen in the first place?
well,
I mean, why has all this come about?
let's let Nels have a say, Peter.
Sure.
Well, I will address Peter one thing. Peter said that whenever you hear the word crackdown, you have to reach for your skepticism, and I tend to agree with him on that. But I must point out that I don't think I've ever heard Peter when he's not skeptic about something.
He is our resident skeptic, our resident leveveler voice, as in try not to get swept away with things.
Absolutely. Look, I think that Andy Burnham has gotten off to a good start. I think Andy Burnham has brought this thing that us human beings called hope back into the political market, which I think is very, very valuable. I think he comes across as very presentable, likable, charming, somewhat thoughtful, very much more human, and connects on a very, very humane level in a way that Starmer was just unable to do. So on that basis, I think that you're noticing there's a bounce in the polls. This is still the honeymoon period. The wedding, her honeymoon is short, the wedding is long. And let's see how long he can keep the popularity up for. But in terms of actually the policies he's coming up with, the ideas he's bringing to the table, the fact he's bringing ideas to the table and bringing new ways of thinking or fresh ways of thinking to the table is a refreshing.
We haven't heard a lot about those ideas. Last week's announcements were small bits and bobs that he can do to help with the cost of living crisis. He came unstuck a little bit because it turned out that they weren't as funded as he said that they would be, or they were banked on funding that didn't exist effectively. And so this week he's taking these huge, big nationwide issues, youth sickness, social care, defence, and he's going to make proposals and announcements, but actually putting meat on the bone, as in he's going to translate, he's going to give across a series of things that sound good and that sounds reasonable. But he's got an issue here because he needs to keep Labour MPs with him. And as you say, Peter, it's all very well wanting these things or painting a picture of how he wants it to be, but he's got to explain how he's going to get there.
And the great difficulty here is he going to make some sort of tax attack on the middle classes? In which case, I should have thought his chances of staying in government after the current term.
How would he do that, Peter, do you think?
Well, I don't know. There are all kinds of ways of going for some sort of property or so-called wealth tax, because enormous numbers of people are, that whether they want it or not, sitting on houses, particularly in London and the southeast of England, which are worth, in theory, enormous sums of money. And it must be very tempting, particularly for someone on the left, to say, right, well, let's go for these people and try and raise more money from them. But most such attempts in European countries to tax people's wealth, which is what this basically is, fail for various reasons, and they're also extremely unpopular. And I just think that would almost certainly be unwise. I don't know that Mr. Burnham is intelligent enough to realise it, and also intelligent enough to fend off those members of his cabinet who aren't intelligent enough to realise it. But I don't know. He might go for it because he's squeezed by circumstances.
I don't agree. I don't accept that a wealth tax targets middle class people. I think that targets the ultra wealthy. If you're going after if the suggestion that he is going to go after people, that he's going to tax people who have wealth over 10 million at a rate of 2% above 10 million. So that doesn't strike me as being unreasonable, unintelligent, or actually unproductive, truth be told. But most importantly too, in terms of council tax in this country is broken. It doesn't. It's a redundant.
Well, he has ruled out doing anything actively on scrapping council tax or stamp duty. So he has said today that is simply not true.
Okay, that's fine. It's the land value. So we're going to stick with council tax and then to maintain a process in which people with houses worth millions are paying less in council tax than people with flats worth, I don't know, hundreds of thousands. I don't think it's a wise idea. But time will tell how that will be resolved.
If these are the nation's big issues, what are we not hearing about from Andy Burnham, and do we need to be sceptical by the omission of not hearing about a particular issue, Peter?
Well, we're not hearing all that much about one of the things which has been been getting a huge amount of coverage over the past few months, which I'm particularly concerned about, which is the very grave state of our hospitals, particularly maternity care. There doesn't seem to be any real scheme to do anything about this. We have a new health secretary now, but what are they going to do with it? And there remains this ridiculous unsolved affair, which is very close to my heart, which is that the authorities are still sticking with the conviction and virtual death sentence of Lucy Letby on the basis that she somehow or other was responsible for a large number of deaths in a hospital where every inquiry, including into her own hospital now, recently on the BBC, everything shows that the state of maternity care in British hospitals is appalling. And it's been raised in repeated reports and in many hospitals. And what is their plan for dealing with it? And what ideas do they have? That's one. If there was one thing that really rises above almost all else, then of course there is the enormous problem for many people of the gigantic amount of student debt, which is now which hangs like a great cliff of indebtedness.
Yeah,
of
very true.
Very large numbers of families. I hear no proposals to resolve this either.
I mean, proposals to sort that are inevitably going to cost money.
Exactly.
And it's almost like this week, we you know, the issue of social care is such a big beast. There is so much reform needed that you can talk about the theory and suggestions, and you can pull in different directions, but you don't necessarily need to commit an idea with money to it, and he'll be unable to do that anyway. The issue of student debt is purely about easing financial strain. It is purely about do you change the rules of student debt? The government's factored in for certain amounts of debt to be repaid. That is sticky for Andy Burnham, because if he's to announce any easing on student debt pressure, that is going to cost money, and a lot of money, and there's going to be all sorts of historical cases to then address.
So he won't do it.
Well, it is, and in his position, perhaps we understand it, perhaps we think he should be bolder. I mean, Nels, we've not heard anything on immigration, have we, so far? What else?
I think immigration is a beautiful thing. I think it's a good thing. I think immigration is important. But I must point out, I think where Starmer, not the long forgotten Starmer.
You're living in the past, Nels.
Where Burnham has got this right, I actually think that only appointing a minister for AI was a smart idea to do. But
only one chap who's got one ministerial aid, I think. I mean, a lot of people are saying that just simply isn't enough. You can't just take the whole of AI and plonk it on one minister's lap.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. But I think the fact that he actually has one minister there who's dedicated to keep his eye on the ball on that, to come up with policies, come up with ideas, and I'm sure that the staff and the resources afforded to him will increase as time goes on. I think youth unemployment is a very scary time bomb for us as a nation.
What about what is missing now? Sorry to butt in. Anything you're not hearing, or any policy area that you think has been omitted so far, and is that on purpose?
I do agree that, look, maternity care is a very, very significant issue. I'm a dad. I went through that. I'm a dad. I'm on the lucky side of the bargain. But I did notice, even then, this was about 12 years ago when we had our my little girl. I forgot when you were born, but this is about 12 and a bit years ago when my daughter was born, and I do remember even then too I was thinking that this could be a lot better a service. So I think, and also too when it comes to black women, black women are 4 times more significantly more likely, I think it's more than 4 times more likely to die in maternity care.
Childbirth, yeah.
Demographic. So also I must point out too that in terms of the equalities remits, and then looking at the different types of the equalities remit in general, there hasn't really been much from that too. That it's still early days, and we'll give them some time to bed in.
All right, OK. Look, coming up next, we're going to talk about Zach Palansky. He's been reported to the police by Reform UK. We've got a statement from the Green Party now, and an update from the Met Police as well, care of Sky News. So we'll bring you that. And we'll talk about those Italian tourists in Thailand who were, well, incredibly rude on a train and have had to pay for it. All that on the way with Nels Abbey and Peter Hitchens. Peter Hitchens and Nels Abbey are with us to run through the big stories of the day. Let's focus on Zach Palansky. Reform UK have reported the Green Party leader to the police, after he shared a photo on Instagram of a man wearing a shirt featuring an image of a large guillotine and the words, "We're only making plans for Nigel." The Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, criticised Palansky on X, saying, "If I was to post anything as insightful, then I would expect to be arrested, and so should Palansky." A Green Party spokesperson said the image was immediately unshared after it was brought to Palansky's attention, adding that he did not support this type of dangerous message. And Sky News understands or has made contact with the Met Police. The Met Police says it's making inquiries about the post, but I don't think they have engaged with Zach Palansky as of yet. This is an interesting one. Well, in fact, let's just hear from Joe Tanner, political strategist, former advisor to Boris Johnson, on this.
I really detest the way that people talk about politicians. I think it is incredibly wrong to use any form of, suggestions of violence or hatred. I mean, you can disagree with people really strongly, but I think that is really poor. And I'm glad the Green leader has taken it down, but I think people need to be a damn sight more careful in what they're sharing. So I think it's right that the attention's been drawn to it.
Joe Tanner there. Look, if Zach Palansky, and obviously he would be subject to an investigation, the police would have to decide that they're going to take action. But if anyone is found guilty of sharing an insightful message on social media, there could be, there is a criminal conviction and also jail time, as we know after the Southport riots and other examples, Nels.
Yeah, and this person won't be convicted. This is a complete waste of police time. And I've experienced this before, not personally. I've not personally been arrested for anything like this, although I'd like to think I live on the edge of as a person of words. But I've seen it before. There was a trial, what I dubbed the emoji trial, in which a young man was actually placed on trial and his wife was destroyed for 2 to 3 years for sending sending an emoji one person considered offensive. I was, of course, I played something of a key role in what became an international case called the Coconut Trial, in which somebody was charged and had their life destroyed simply for a satirical placard. And then there was another trial called the N-word trial, which two black people were speaking to each other and used the N-word as a slang when describing a particular footballer. Incompetent police officer walks in and goes and raids their houses. All 3 of these people were pretty much either had their cases dismissed or were found not guilty. This is absurd. This is Britain. I'm so sorry. This is Britain. We're a land of political satire. We're the land of spitting image. We're the land of monkey dust. We're the land of all sorts of. We're the land of Orwell. Dare I even say we're the land of the Hitchens brothers. So for us to be in this situation over here, where somebody's clearly wearing a satirical T-shirt or so, making some sort of satirical comment, which doesn't even make any direct reference to Nigel Farage or anybody else. So the fact that it's suddenly become a police case is just an absurdity. I can't really understand why this is happening in this land at all whatsoever. I know Boris Johnson's former political advisor was speaking, but I think she might want to find herself a one-way ticket to North Korea. This is not the land for her. I'm so sorry.
This is Reform UK reporting Zach Palansky to the police, so it is something that Reform UK as a party have decided to do, Peter.
Reform UK one second, Peter. You mean Reform UK that welcomed Lucy Connolly, who literally did plead guilty to actually inciting violence against migrants in hotels that were burnt down? They invited her to their actual party conference as a hero. Kemi Badenoch actually welcomed her home too, and amongst other people. They're comparing that to this. I get it. The backdrop of the vicious murder of Anne Widdecombe is one thing, but we cannot allow one tragedy to to make us throw our values out of the window. We're a land of satire, a land of political engagement. And offence is part of is the price we pay for that freedom.
Peter.
Well, my response to it was very different from the one of Reform UK. I see that Nigel Farage is starting a new career as a victim. And it's quite a good tactic when you've been accused of the things he's being accused of to become a victim, and maybe that will turn out to suit him better than his previous incarnation, though I don't quite see the point. My feeling is quite different. For some time I've noticed, and I live in Oxford, which is full of left-wing people, quite not a huge number, wearing T-shirts featuring a picture of a guillotine and bearing the legend, a platform for fascists or a platform for racists. The basic idea being that, as far as they're concerned, the people whom they classify as fascists and racists, who might not actually be fascists and racists by any objective definition, are deserving of death. And this is a fundamental paradox about left-wing people. They're extremely opposed to the death penalty for convicted criminals and murderers in non-political cases where people have just committed heinous murder. They're very much against that, and they regard that as totally immoral. When it comes to political opponents, they still have not entirely shaken off the old Jacobin view, and that's why I think the guillotine is used in these pictures, that the enemy should go to the guillotine. It's a very, very interesting contradiction between their absolute furious rejection of the idea of the execution of individual criminals and their less than furious rejection of the idea that political opponents should be done away with. And when left-wing movements come fully to power, it's noticeable that quite often they do resort to execution. As I say, I'm not particularly interested in the spat between Mr. Palansky and Mr. Farage, because it seems to me to be what it quite obviously is. I don't suspect Mr. Palansky of calling for the death of Nigel Farage, nor am I as convinced as some people are that we're undergoing a wave of political assassinations in this country. But what I do feel is that the profound intolerance of the left towards people who disagree with it, and the view that people who disagree with it are not just wrong but bad, comes out in all kinds of quite striking ways, and this is one. If it gets them into trouble, I suppose one can only laugh, but it's getting them into trouble in this case for the wrong reasons.
All right, okay. Interesting thoughts from both of you. Thank you. Briefly, Nels?
I'm very surprised that Peter would say that in relation to this. Peter,
what are you surprised by?
Well, but no, because again, I don't agree with the guff that a Corbyn government gets the power that suddenly we're putting people under the guillotine for having.
Who said he did? I didn't say that.
No,
if I said something as crude as that, you'd be entitled to disagree with it. But I was saying something slightly more subtle. If subtlety is not allowed on Times Radio, then I will desist from employing it.
We might as well pack up and go home. All right, look, let's spare a few minutes for some Italian tourists, not that they need our sympathy. The Italian embassy has been forced to apologise after a video emerged of a group of teenagers mocking a woman and swearing on a school trip in Thailand.
Not scream, okay? In Thailand, we not scream.
Sorry for bringing money to your country.
No manner. Yeah, you too. Just shut the off. Where are you from?
Thailand.
No, you're not. Where are you from? Your mother.
Well, in the video, and you could hear some of it there, the students mock her, this lady, call her the B word. One teenager raises a middle finger while the others laugh and continue to make noise. A teacher can be heard saying in a sarcastic tone, "Sorry for bringing money to your country." The teacher tells the community to shut the F up, adding they're just children. The original post was removed from TikTok. It amassed more than 16 million views on X. So they had to make a public apology to the Thai people on behalf of the group. Students were fined, not much money, it has to be said, the equivalent of, but they were fined something, and the Italian embassy forced them into action. I mean, this is absolutely blatant racism. It was caught on camera, and it's disgusting that a teacher is facilitating this behaviour and trying to forgive it as well. How does it make you feel, Peter?
Well, there are several things about it. One, I always think of Italy as being a country of high culture and good manners, and it's particularly distressing to see Italians behaving in this way. It obviously isn't entirely true that that's the case. But the other thing it draws attention to is what a curse tourism is to any country or place which has to rely on it. And one would point out that, of course, Venice, and to a slightly lesser extent Florence, have been completely cursed with tourism for years now. The cities which were once beautiful and serene are now almost completely impossible to bear because of the huge jostling crowds of people who don't really know where they are. And it's no good turning to the actual remaining residents of Florence and Venice and saying, oh, well, you should be grateful for the money we bring, because look at what else they bring. I think there should be a lot less tourism myself. I think people should be discouraged from tourism, especially if they're going to behave like that.
Yeah.
And it's an example of why it is such a pestilence, and why people should think of something else to do with their time.
Surely you should make sure that they can never enter Thailand again, Nels, or is that harsh?
It's a bit much, isn't it? These people will grow up. I mean, the moment may come when they realise how awful they
maybe.
Then sure,
Hopefully.
Lifetime ban might be a bit tough.
Well, Nels?
Well, proving Peter wrong, I'm not going to call for the guillotine for the young guys altogether. Whatever. I think that they're young, they're foolish. They might need to go and actually really understand the impact of their words and try and rid themselves of the racism. But look, they're young people, and I hope they get the opportunity to grow beyond this and make good upon the errors of their ways. But more importantly, tourism is a beautiful thing. The world is all of our oyster, and we should all get to see it as much as possible. And on that note, I'm off to Canada in a few weeks.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Peter, Nels, thank you so much. That is the author and columnist Peter Hitchens, Nels Abbey, author and broadcaster. Great to speak to you both. Thank you.